Okay, so to start off drawing your chair, you are going to want to create two planes. So to do that, you want to actually start drawing in this second quad and go to the create icon over on your command panel. Press that, make sure that standard primitives are selected, and then under object type, select plane. So in this second quad, we'll press and drag our plane, and then go back over to your command panel and go under parameters, and we're going to set our length and width to 14 feet. Set to 14, and width to 14 as well. Okay. So once you have that, you're going to want to make a copy of this plane and intersect those two planes together. So you can just press shift and make sure first that your move tool is selected. So press shift and then press on the selection with the move tool and drag it over, and it makes a copy. Then you'll get the clone options window pop up, and make sure copy is selected. Then press OK. So we're going to want to intersect them perpendicularly. So with this copy that you made, go and select the rotate tool, and we're going to rotate it to be perpendicular to our original plane. And do this in the top view. Okay. We also want to make sure that it's set at 90 degrees. So while you still have your rotate tool selected, go down to these X, Y, and Z coordinates and just change the Z coordinate to 90 degrees. Okay? So it changes that. And then we're going to want to select the move tool and set both of these planes to 0, 0, 0 by using these same coordinates down here. So just set all these numbers to 0 for X, Y, and Z. And then select the other plane and do the same thing. Okay, so once you have these two planes intersected, we're going to put our elevations as a material on these. So to do that, go up to these tools on your toolbar, and at the end next to the teapots, you'll have this material editor. Select that. And we're going to change two materials to be our elevations. So I'll select this bottom one, and you can select any of them, but I'll just choose this for now. And then go down to physical material, press that. And then under this, go down to scan line, and under scan line, select standard. Then press OK. Okay, so then you'll get these new windows pop up, and under blend basic parameters, go down to diffuse and select the little box across from it. You'll get a new window. And under general, you're going to want to select bitmap. It's the first one. Press OK. Then you'll get a new window pop up. So go to wherever you saved your front and side elevation of the chair. And you can first select the front elevation. So once you have that selected, press open. And then you'll get this coordinates window that pops up, and you'll go down to size and just make sure that the size is set to 14 feet on both width and height to match our planes. Okay. So once we have that, we're just going to want to do the same thing for another material. Just follow the same steps, except this time input the side elevation. It's okay. Go to diffuse and click the box. Select bitmap. And then now we will input or import the side elevation. Press open. And then don't forget to reset the size to match the planes. So 14 feet and 14 feet. Okay, so once we have those set, keep this window open and select that first front elevation material and click and drag it over to the first to this plane. Okay, then select the second or the side elevation material, press and drag it over to the other one. Okay, so once we have that, we can exit out of this material editor window. And then as you can tell, we can't see the elevations, and in order to fix that, you're going to want to go up to these 4 tabs, and the one that says standard, press on that, and you'll get a new window that pops up, and go down to materials, and under that select realistic materials with maps. Okay, so it changes all of them. Sometimes you still won't see them because this last tab will be set to, if you press it, it'll be set to wireframe. But we want to make sure it's set to default shading. That way we can actually see the elevation. So actually, you're going to want to make sure this front elevation is over here and the side elevation is in this quad. So I'm just going to fix that really fast. It happens sometimes depending on how you draw your planes. So this was our first elevation. So you're going to want to make sure that the front elevation is on plane 1, not plane 2. That was the mistake I made. Change the other one. Okay. So after we've changed that, just make sure that in the second quad you have the front elevation, and in this third quad you have the side elevation. Okay, so now that we have these materials and planes set, we have our elevations up, we can start drawing. So we can start drawing, you can start wherever you want. I'm going to start with this first component over here, this little box. And to draw that, I'm going to make sure I'm under Create, this little plus sign, Standard Primitives, and then under Object Type, this time select Box. Okay, so in this front elevation, we're going to click and drag, and then just give it some volume. You're going to be working back and forth between the side elevation and the front elevation, so whenever you're drawing, just kind of look at both of them. As you can tell in the side elevation, whenever you're still drawing the box without manipulating the parameters, it's giving it volume and filling up the side elevation. So just press that, and as you can tell, it's not hitting and filling out the whole box in the side elevation, even though it is in the front elevation. So to fix that, we'll go back to the command panel, go to modify, and then we'll manipulate it to correctly fill this box by using and manipulating the length, width, and height. So the length, let's start with that. You're not actually going to be inputting specific numbers into these boxes. You're going to be using the up and down arrow to just manipulate the size accordingly. So let's start with length and see what that does. So that's just, we had it set right the first time, so just make sure it's fitting in on the lines. And then the width, we can see it really changing in the front elevation, so just set that to line up with the lines as well. And then the height, okay, it's going to manipulate the shape, as you can tell, in the side elevation. So make sure your move tool is selected and drag the shape over to the other side, and then manipulate the height again to fill in to the other side. Okay, so we have this box set. Now we can move on to these vertical components of the chair, these supports. So we'll just do that by drawing another box. Let's switch to our side elevation, a third quad, and start drawing the box. Okay. Then we want to look at our front elevation to make sure the size there is the same as well. It looks like we need to move it over a little bit, and since you can't see the full solid filled shape in the front elevation, that means it's behind, so you can still see it change size, but you're going to have to actually move it within the top or plane view, or this first quad. So by having your move tool selected, just select that box we just drew and move it along the x-axis and see it line up within the front elevation. Okay, so that looks pretty lined up. And then go to your modify icon, start manipulating those parameters until you have the box lined up correctly. That looks fine to me. So now instead of drawing, if you look at your side elevation, instead of drawing these two other vertical supports, we can just clone the one we just drew. So you'll just make sure your move tool is selected, press shift and move that over. Make sure it's a copy, press OK, and then move it along the x-axis in the side elevation. Line it up with the lines on the drawing, and then under the modify panel, manipulate the length, width, and height to match up with the drawing. Okay, then you can copy that over again. Make sure it's a copy, press OK. Move that over. Manipulate the length. Okay. So now we can move on to another part of the chair. We can let's start drawing these little box supports that we see in the side elevation. So G, let's start with that. Draw another box. And then look at your front elevation. You see that highlighted box we just drew right here. And so as you can tell, it's going to have to extend horizontally behind the back of the chair. So let's go ahead and modify that with our parameters. So as you can tell, I'm moving it along the top view. And then manipulating the height. Okay. Then once again, instead of having to draw a whole bunch of new boxes, we're just gonna copy it over to the other ones. Make sure copy is selected, press OK, and just line it up with these other boxes. Manipulate the parameters as needed, so make sure you're looking at the front elevation simultaneously. Okay, that looks about right. Go ahead and copy that one over again. Make sure you're moving it along the axes. Okay, it looks right on the front elevation, so we'll just copy it without manipulating. That size looks correct in the front elevation as well. Let's make another copy. Okay. So once we're done with those boxes, let's move on to this bottom support platform. We'll just go ahead and make a new box for that. Zoom in a little bit. And that way you can see where you're drawing. And then now look at your front elevation. So they're actually going to be these two boxes right here. So let's go to our modify panel and first move this box over. We can do that in our front view because it's on top of the elevation, so we can actually move it here. Okay. Let's go ahead and modify some of the parameters. Make sure it lines up. Okay, looks good. Now we'll just make a copy of that to save us time. Make sure it's a copy. Okay. So the next step is going to be drawing the seat and the back support of the chair. Let's start with the seat. We will have to create a new box, so select box, and then zoom in to the side elevation, and make sure you start from the bottom here. It just makes it easier, and then drag it over to where it ends on the drawing. Now obviously this is not the correct shape. We're going to have to rotate it after we manipulate